Most people don't realize this, but muscle loss actually begins much earlier than we expect. Around the age of 30, we start to lose muscle mass at a slow but steady pace, typically about 3 to 8% per decade. Now, that might not sound alarming at first, but here's the thing. The rate accelerates as we age, and by the time someone reaches 60 or 70, they've lost a significant portion of their lean muscle tissue. The real danger is that this decline often goes unnoticed. We tend to blame our sluggishness, fatigue, or stiffness on getting older, when in reality, our muscles are literally shrinking beneath the surface. This gradual muscle loss, known as sarcopenia, is one of the most overlooked threats to our health span, not just lifespan health span, meaning the number of years we live fully functional, mobile, and strong. Sarcopenia doesn't just impact how you look or how much weight you can lift, it increases your risk of falls, fractures, insulin resistance, and even cognitive decline. Your muscles are more than just movers. They're metabolic organs. They regulate glucose, support immune function, and even communicate with your brain through signaling molecules called myokines. So when you start losing muscle, you're not just losing strength, you're losing an entire system that supports long-term health. What's fascinating is that this process starts silently. You don't feel it happening. You might feel a little weaker when climbing stairs or getting up from a chair, but nothing dramatic. And because it's subtle, most people do nothing about it until the symptoms become hard to ignore, when mobility drops, when recovery slows down, or when muscle tone vanishes entirely. That's when people usually panic and start looking for answers. But the good news is, you don't have to wait until it gets bad. Science has now shown that this process is not only preventable, it's reversible, and the first step is awareness. Many assume that to stop muscle loss, you need to live in the gym, lift heavy weights daily, or start some extreme fitness routine. But that's not where it begins. The starting point is actually about optimizing your internal biology, creating a hormonal and nutrient environment that supports muscle protein synthesis and satellite cell activation. This is where a key micronutrient comes into play, one that most people are unknowingly deficient in: vitamin D. Now, before diving into that, it's important to recognize that your muscles don't work in isolation. They are deeply connected to your nervous system, to your hormones, to the quality of your sleep, and yes, to the nutrients circulating in your blood. The decline in muscle mass is often a reflection of these systems starting to fall out of balance. And what researchers have found is that one of the first systems to show signs of imbalance is the neuromuscular system, the direct communication between your brain and your muscles. That signal weakens over time unless you actively maintain it. This is why early prevention is so powerful. If you start addressing muscle health at 30 or even 40, you're not just keeping yourself stronger, you're protecting your independence for decades to come. Because here's the uncomfortable truth. Muscle loss is the real reason so many people end up dependent on others in later life. It's not just about aging. It's about disuse, deficiency, and delayed action. The muscles you build or preserve today are your ticket to freedom tomorrow, and the science is clear. With the right approach, including proper nutrition, supplementation, and nervous system engagement, you can halt and even reverse this decline within weeks. One simple, powerful vitamin can make the difference between decline and strength, between limitation and performance, between aging fast or aging strong. That's the foundation most people miss, and it's where everything starts. When most people hear vitamin D, they immediately think about bone health or maybe just getting some sun, but vitamin D is far more than that. It's not just a vitamin, and it functions like a hormone, and its role in your body is profound, especially when it comes to preserving and building muscle. In fact, if you're not getting enough of it, and many people aren't, your body enters a state where muscle maintenance becomes incredibly difficult. No matter how much protein you eat or how much exercise you do. What science has shown is that vitamin D plays a critical role in regulating muscle protein synthesis, the exact process your body uses to build new muscle tissue. It acts directly on muscle cells, binding to specific vitamin D receptors that influence how those cells function. These receptors aren't passive. They actively signal your muscles to regenerate, grow, and strengthen, especially in response to training or mechanical stress. When vitamin D levels are low, that signaling weakens. And when the signal weakens, your muscle quality and repair begin to suffer even if you're physically active. This is particularly important as we age. The older we get, the less efficient our body becomes at producing and activating vitamin D through sunlight exposure. At the same time, our muscle tissue becomes more resistant to growth stimuli, so what we end up with is a perfect storm: declining vitamin D, declining muscle response, and a steady march toward sarcopenia unless we intervene. Now, here's what's fascinating. Studies have found that restoring vitamin D to optimal levels leads to measurable improvements in muscle performance, not in months, but in as little as 2 weeks. That's how fast the neuromuscular system can respond when you correct a deficiency. People report improved strength, better balance, faster reaction time, and quicker recovery after training. That's not placebo, that's cellular machinery finally getting what it needs to function properly. Another layer to this is inflammation. Low vitamin D levels are associated with higher systemic inflammation, which creates a catabolic environment, a state where your body is breaking down tissue faster than it can rebuild it. Muscle can't grow or even survive in that state for long, but when vitamin D levels are normalized, inflammation markers drop. That shift helps move your physiology from catabolic breakdown to anabolic repair. You go from wasting away to building up. It's also important to understand that vitamin D doesn't work alone. It interacts with hormones like testosterone and estrogen, both of which influence muscle health. Vitamin D has been shown to increase free testosterone in deficient individuals and support estrogen receptor activity in women, especially postmenopausal women, who are more vulnerable to muscle loss. So, when you improve vitamin D status, you're not just supporting one system. You're orchestrating an entire hormonal environment that's far more favorable to muscle preservation and growth. And what's incredible is how easy it is to turn this around. You don't need an extreme protocol. You need awareness, daily exposure to natural sunlight, ideally mid-day for 15 to 30 minutes, can make a significant difference. For many people, though especially those in northern latitudes or with darker skin, sunlight alone may not be enough. That's where supplementation comes in, particularly with vitamin D3, which is the most bioavailable form. Doses vary by individual, but research supports ranges of 2.0 to 5.0 IU daily for many adults to maintain optimal blood levels. And when you combine that with key cofactors like magnesium and vitamin K2, absorption and activation improve dramatically. When you support your body with the right inputs, things it's been craving silently, it responds quickly. Muscles stop degrading and start rebuilding. Your energy returns, your strength rebounds, and for many, even mood and mental clarity improve because vitamin D also affects brain function and neurotransmitter regulation. This isn't about chasing perfection. It's about giving your body the biological support it needs to do what it's already wired to do. Stay strong, resilient, and capable. Vitamin D is one of the simplest, most effective levers you can pull to make that happen. When we talk about reversing muscle loss, most people expect slow progress, maybe months of hard training, perfect nutrition, and consistent habits before they notice any real change. That belief makes the idea of muscle recovery feel almost impossible, especially for someone already in decline. But what the science actually shows is something very different and far more hopeful. With the right intervention, you can see significant improvements in muscle strength and function in as little as 14 days. That's not a theory, it's a result backed by clinical studies on vitamin D's impact on the neuromuscular system. One study in particular observed participants who were vitamin D deficient and experiencing signs of muscle weakness. After supplementing with proper doses of vitamin D3, they showed measurable gains in muscle performance in just 2 weeks. These weren't elite athletes, they were regular people with real deficiencies. Their balance improved, their walking speed increased. Their grip strength, which is often used as a predictor of overall health, went up. That kind of rapid progress tells us something important. Once the body is given what it needs, it doesn't wait around. It responds fast, and it's not just about muscle size. The nervous system plays a huge role here. Vitamin D directly impacts how well your brain communicates with your muscles. It affects the function of motor neurons, the cells that send signals from your brain and spinal cord to muscle fibers. When those neurons are properly supported, your muscle contractions become sharper, more coordinated, and more powerful. That's why people feel stronger and more stable even before they've gained much visible muscle mass. It's the neuromuscular connection coming back online. Think about it this way: your muscles are like engines, but your nervous system is the ignition system. If your vitamin D levels are low, the engine may be fine, but the ignition isn't firing properly. That creates sluggish movement, poor reaction time, and low energy output. Correcting that deficiency is like flipping a switch. Suddenly, the ignition starts working again, and the entire system lights up. That 14-day window matters not because it's a magic fix, but because it proves how quickly the body can shift direction. It means we don't need to be stuck in decline. We don't have to wait for some perfect future moment to start rebuilding. With the right support, even something as simple and accessible as correcting a vitamin D deficiency, the momentum can begin to reverse right now. Of course, to maintain that momentum, consistency is key. Continuing to fuel your body with what it needs, not just nutrients, but sleep, movement, and recovery, turns short-term improvements into long-term transformation. But the beauty is in that initial window. It's proof that your biology is always ready to work for you, not against you. It's just waiting for the signal. That signal is often as simple as restoring what's missing. One of the biggest challenges with vitamin D deficiency is that most people don't even realize they have it. It doesn't scream for attention like an injury or illness. It creeps in quietly. You might feel a little more tired than usual or notice your strength isn't quite what it used to be. Maybe your recovery after workouts is slower or your joints ache more than they should. Most people write it off as stress, age, or just a bad week. But these are some of the earliest signs that your body is running low on something essential and that muscle loss may already be underway. Fatigue, weakness, frequent illness, low mood, difficulty concentrating, and even persistent joint or back pain can all be linked to low vitamin D levels. Yet because these symptoms are so common and nonspecific, they're rarely traced back to a nutrient deficiency. That's the trap. People keep pushing through, hoping things will get better on their own, while their muscle health and overall resilience quietly decline. You don't need to be visibly sick to be deficient. You just need to be slightly off, and most of the time you are, for months or even years before anything is done about it. Globally, it's estimated that over 1 billion people are vitamin D deficient. And the groups most at risk aren't who you might expect. People with darker skin tones, for example, naturally produce less vitamin D from sunlight. That means even if they spend time outside, they may still fall short. Older adults are also at risk because aging skin becomes less efficient at synthesizing vitamin D, and the kidneys become less effective at converting it to its active form. Add to that modern indoor lifestyles, sunscreen use, long winters, and poor dietary sources, and suddenly, deficiency becomes the norm instead of the exception. But here's the key insight: this deficiency doesn't just affect bones or immune health. It directly impacts the muscles, especially the fast, twitch fibers that control strength, balance, and power. These are the fibers that help you react quickly, stay upright, lift heavy, and avoid injury. They're also the ones that decline fastest with age. Without adequate vitamin D, they shrink, weaken, and become less responsive to exercise. That's one reason people feel like they're losing strength no matter how much effort they put in. The biological environment just isn't supporting the work. The good news is that identifying a deficiency is simple. A basic blood test measuring 25-hydroxyvitamin D gives you a clear picture of where you stand. In most cases, levels between 40-60 ng/ml are considered optimal for musculoskeletal health, and once you know your status, you can act. You can adjust your sun exposure, modify your diet, or start supplementation with the right form and dose. It's not about guesswork, it's about informed action. Awareness is powerful because once you connect these everyday symptoms to a deeper issue, you stop treating them as random or inevitable. You realize they're signals, not nuisances, pointing you toward a solution. And when you fix the root cause, not only does your energy come back, your muscles begin to respond again, your strength returns, and the trajectory of decline starts to reverse. Once you understand how vital vitamin D is for muscle health, the next step is learning how to actually optimize it. And the truth is, it's not complicated, but it does require consistency and some strategy. The most natural and effective way to boost vitamin D is through sunlight. Your skin is designed to produce vitamin D3 when it's exposed to UVB rays, and the process is incredibly efficient under the right conditions. Just 15 to 30 minutes of direct sunlight a day, ideally around midday, with your arms and legs exposed, can make a major difference. But there's a catch. A lot of us aren't getting that kind of sun exposure regularly. Depending on your location, time of year, skin tone, and even how much time you spend indoors, sunlight might not be enough. That's where supplementation comes in, and it's one of the simplest tools you can use to regain control over your muscle health. Vitamin D3 is the form your body naturally produces, and the one most recommended for supplementation. For many people, a daily dose between 2,000 and 5,000 IU is effective in restoring and maintaining optimal levels, especially when monitored with a blood test. But there's more to it than just taking a pill. Vitamin D doesn't work in isolation. It depends on a few key cofactors to be properly absorbed and activated in the body. Magnesium, for example, is essential. It supports the enzymes that convert vitamin D into its active form. Without enough magnesium, even high doses of vitamin D won't do what they're supposed to. That's why so many people who supplement without understanding the full picture see little to no change. Another important factor is vitamin K2. It works alongside vitamin D to make sure calcium is directed to the right places, your bones and muscles, and not deposited in soft tissues where it doesn't belong. When all three are in balance, vitamin D, magnesium, and K2, the system runs smoothly. Muscles respond better, bones become stronger, and the risk of injury or long-term degeneration goes down significantly. Now, pair that with strength training, even just bodyweight movements or light resistance, and the impact becomes exponential. The vitamin D creates the right internal environment, and the physical stimulus gives your muscles a reason to grow. Together, they shift your biology into an anabolic state, one that builds and repairs rather than breaks down. That's when real transformation starts. What's often missed in the conversation about muscle health is just how deeply connected your brain is to your physical strength. Muscles don't operate on their own, they're constantly receiving signals from your nervous system. Every movement, every contraction, every reflex begins in the brain. And vitamin D plays a surprisingly important role in that brain-to-muscle communication loop. It influences how well your motor cortex, the part of the brain responsible for initiating movement, interacts with the spinal cord and ultimately your muscle fibers. When vitamin D levels are low, that signaling gets fuzzy. Reaction times slow down, coordination becomes clumsy. You might not notice it immediately, but it shows up in the little things: missteps on the stairs, delayed responses when catching something, or muscles that just don't seem to fire with the same intensity. This is because vitamin D receptors are not just in your bones and muscles. They're also in the brain, particularly in regions involved with motor control and balance. When those receptors are activated properly, the nervous system becomes more efficient, and muscle control sharpens. One of the most powerful things about restoring vitamin D levels is that it doesn't just strengthen the muscle tissue itself, it enhances the entire communication system that activates it. That's how you can see improvements in muscle power, balance, and coordination, even before there's a noticeable change in muscle size. It's your brain regaining its ability to control your body with more precision. And over time, that increased efficiency leads to better workouts, safer movement patterns, and fewer injuries. This neurological effect also explains why so many people report clearer thinking, elevated mood, and increased mental energy once they corrected deficiency. The same nutrient that boosts your muscle response also supports neurotransmitter production and synaptic plasticity, the mechanisms that allow your brain to adapt and function at a high level. So when you optimize vitamin D, you're not just improving your physical strength, you're sharpening your mind, aligning your focus, and reestablishing that vital brain-body connection. It's a full-spectrum upgrade, and it starts with something as simple as restoring balance to a single essential nutrient. You rebuild not just strength, but the system that drives it from the inside out. So when we talk about stopping muscle loss, not just slowing it, but actively reversing it, it's not about magic or complexity or chasing the latest trend. It's about understanding how your body works and giving it what it needs to thrive. Vitamin D is one of the most powerful yet overlooked tools in that process. It repairs the communication between your brain and your muscles, enhances your strength, sharpens your coordination, reduces inflammation, and supports hormonal balance, all within a matter of days when used correctly. This isn't about adding one more thing to your to-do list. This is about restoring what your biology has been waiting for all along. Strength is not lost with age, it's lost with neglect. And now you know how to take it back.